Nicole once told me that before satsang on Thursday and Sunday, Robert spent the whole day trying to figure out what he was going to say. Some days, maybe once every 2 months, Robert didn't have anything to say. He sat like usual before satsang, eyes closed, perfectly serene. And when time for satsang came, he continued sitting there like that, without saying anything. Maybe for 3 to 5 minutes after satsang began. And then abruptly, he got up and walked out of satsang. We all looked at each other like, what the hell just happened? I talked to Robert about what happened to him in those days. And he said it felt like he was walking in the bottom of a swimming pool. Well, I didn't really explain why he didn't say anything. But I know that each time he spent a lot of time thinking about what to say. So do I. Never a whole day. But I try to have a topic that I want to talk about. To regale you with brilliant prose about the nature of nothingness or something like that. But sometimes I can't think of anything to say either. Especially since all words are phony. They only point to mental things, concepts. But what you and I are is something different from a concept. We are the ones that entertain concepts. But we cannot entertain or see or feel who and what we are. That's strange. Everything we see, feel, hear, taste, and touch is an observation, an act of sentience, becoming aware of something in the world around him or her. But the essence of him or her cannot be grasped. It can only be lived. Robert also used to say, the only freedom one has is to turn within. His attitude, his explicit instructions about the nature of the world is that everything is predetermined. I always wondered why he said that with such confidence. Because I never thought that that was important. But I know why he said it. From my point of view, that sentence is not true. It can never be proved. It doesn't seem true to me. But he said it so people would relax and not to spend too much time planning ahead because it was unnecessary. Everything was unfolding as it should. And those who believe that can get a profound sense of relaxation because they're not the doer. They're the experiencer. So they're not in charge. So you don't have to do anything, even spiritually, except your one freedom, which is to turn within. Welcome, Vesselina. Michael, you're next. Michael's even more relaxed than I am. Your only freedom, because the world is predetermined, is to look within. And it's actually a more sweeping statement than that, because that also means you can feel within. You can also look for that which is in you that hears, tastes, touches, smells. And it all leads to looking at yourself into your own subjectivity rather than at your body or the thoughts in your mind, and just relaxing and leaving your mind behind, you fall into yourself. For many people, that feels like falling backwards into yourself. I used to feel that all the time. And it was a great feeling to be giving up everything and falling into myself. And for me, that meant looking within with an inner vision to the lighted consciousness inside of oneself that's hidden behind the darkness that one ordinarily sees when they first begin to turn within. You begin to narrow your focus of your attention to stuff inside of you, which gives permission for the unconscious and the preconscious to begin to make itself visible inside of you. Which means you might begin to feel intense rage or depression or fear or inner conflict. Because what was hidden before is now exposed. Instead of paying attention to the external world, you pay attention to your internal world. And when you do that, and the more you do that, you can find peace away from the storming of what's going on in the external world. Inflation, Ukraine, the economy, public shootings. The media likes to talk about those all the time, especially now after that school shooting a couple of weeks ago. Every day they talk about shooting and the need to control guns. MSNBC, CNN, ABC. They all talk about gun control. The Republicans say it's not the guns, it's the person holding the gun. I don't care. But I notice what the media is doing. Now the media is also talking all the time about Putin. How he's physically sick and dying. How he may have gone crazy. As if the attacking of Ukraine made him crazy. The media wants you to be convinced of what it wants you to be convinced about. And depending on which media you listen to, your worldview is formed. If you watch MSNBC or CNN, you become a liberal. If you watch Fox News, you become a MAGA or a Trumpist or a mainstream Republican. And the whole country's divided between those two camps. And all that we can do to escape this is pay them no heed and just turn within. And what do we find when we turn within? More or less depends on how long you've been practicing meditation. For a newcomer, they may struggle to find anything within. Other people, this is the majority, find they can't get beyond the constantly thinking mind, busy mind, which won't let them focus on the stillness within. Because the mind's always talking about what we should do, or how large we are, or small we are, weak we are, strong we are. And it's hard to get underneath the mind. But once we start focusing on thoughts and our minds, how they work, mind becomes an object of our inquiry. And as such, we've created some distance between us and our thoughts, because those thoughts are now objects. We can watch thoughts, and even after a while, you can see thoughts as objects, like little donuts that are blurry, but they have a definite shape. And you can watch them come and go. And if you let a thought get close to your brain, it stops becoming or stops being an object. And suddenly you're filled with the thought. Thoughts like, boy, this is uncomfortable to sit here in half lotus, watching my thoughts. Makes my back hurt and my legs. And then the mind goes on from there and thinks about something related, how you've always had leg pain since an accident you had 19 years ago, etc. But after a while, it can be a long while, the mind becomes objectified enough that it becomes like a familiar neighbor, one that you have a difficult relationship with. And you find often that the best relief isn't a resolution of the conflict between you and your neighbor, but instead by recognizing you are not the mind, that it is an object, that you're something else apart from the mind loses its power over you. It really can't influence you anymore. It takes a long time to get there. You start by watching thoughts and then realizing that the you that is watching the thoughts is separate from the thoughts themselves. Even though the thoughts, once they grab you, seem very immediate and as you. They're definitely me. But once you can watch thoughts, you can see they're objects within our consciousness. And as such, they're only consciousness. They don't have any reality, really. They're concepts within us. And concepts have no form. And yet, when we watch the thoughts, they do seem to have a form. And we see inside of ourselves, when we look for ourselves, that we can't be seen. That witness feeling in us. When we look for that which is witnessing our entire subjectivity, we can't find it. All that we can find are the thoughts, as well as the world around us, and maybe some emotion that arises in us, or a mood like depression or anxiety. And when we feel anxiety or depression, it certainly feels like it's happening to us. Because when we're looking at thoughts, we're using a spatial model. And when we look at things, our minds are set up to believe that that which is looked at is distant from that which is looking, which is our minds or whatever it is. So when we look within and we look to find our origin, we cannot, never, ever, ever find it. It may seem at times that we found it, and we can ascribe a description to it, like it's our center. It's where things are decided. It's where self-awareness arises. We can even give it a definition. That definition is seen to not be very real. It's contrived. We really don't know what we are. Words don't fit it. And to know something is to be able to articulate something in terms of concepts. Now, I could describe how I first began to see thoughts like appearing like little clouds floating around me. And there are these thoughts out there. And when the thought gets real close to my head, it's suddenly clear what that thought is. That thought enters my consciousness in a different way than it did when I was watching it. I become the subject thinking that thought. So I get the idea that thoughts are external to me and they're universal, like the word and concept of chair. Everybody knows what the chair means. And when they describe something acting like a chair, they call it a chair, and we understand. We may picture different kinds of chairs, which may look nothing like the chair the person is describing, but the function is the same, even though the actual object itself is different from what we had in mind. But it's something you could sit on comfortably. And thus we begin to see that all words are nothing more than that. It's a communication device. Like, pass me the chair, please. I want to sit my big fat ass down. I'm tired of standing. And the person gladly gives it to us. And we say, thank you, and we sit down. And all words like this turn out to be kinds of communication. Communication of inner states like of depression or anger, or clever theorems we've got about number systems or the nature of reality. And beginning to see this, we see that all words are only concepts. They're concepts about the nature of understanding, the nature of world, the nature of being a witness, the nature of God, the nature of automobile engines, whatever. And with these words, we communicate. But in a sense, we really do not understand. We only understand functioning and communicating to affect functioning. All the others words are so abstract that they don't exist. And when you go within, all your problems dissolve and you find peace as long as you're focused on the inside. There's nothing really to see or really to feel. And when there is something to see or something to feel, we still feel separate from it. So the matrix is both form and formless. Can be used for communication, like let's go to dinner at Marty's or Spumoni's. Let's go shopping at Trader Joe's for food. They all become action things unless we're talking more passively and pensively about the nature of the human condition. And almost everybody will talk about the nature of their reality differently, yet using the same words. So we think we understand each other, but we're not really getting what the other person is experiencing. All of our worlds are essentially private, and we cannot convey that very appropriately to another person because words are very generalistic and our personal experience is very specific. When we use general words to express private personal experiences, it may not really convey to that other person anything like what we actually feel or experience. Only when we live in a very similar bubble of understanding can I understand what you're talking about. And here's the rub. Gaining some distance from the mind and seeing the nature of concepts as being just silly talk about generalities. We distance ourselves from our mind. And we see how silly the mind is. The mind isn't profound, even when it's using the most profound ideas possible. Some educated people like to demonstrate how smart they are by talking in terms of esoteric concepts or trying to impress other people with how many words they know or how many concepts they know. Robert was saying, throw the mind away. Just look and feel into yourself. Don't listen to anybody else's words about who or what you are. Just constantly keep your attention inside instead of on the world. And what's to be gained is freedom from your own thinking, your own concepts, your own criticisms, your own values. And you gradually enter a world of freedom and the ability to just rest inside of yourself without thoughts. And when you can do that, you begin to experience things in you that you never saw before. Intense peace, energies throughout your body. Quietness that quenches the thoughts. And peace, more peace. And after a while, you don't want to think and plan anymore. You'd rather just inhabit yourself mindfully by looking and feeling within rather than without towards those around you or the world. And then all kinds of things begin happening to you too. You begin to realize that you're not your body. That is, you don't identify with your body anymore as being you. It's something you see and feel and touch and taste. You feel from within. You're not lost in thoughts anymore, like most everyday people are. They're lost in thoughts of their own specific personal matrix, which is their family, their employment, their conditioning, their TV programs, radio programs, newspapers. All each creates its own milieu of people that seem to understand each other because they use the same words, the same concepts, and a very similar set of experiences. You know, now I was talking to Swami Shankarananda a couple days ago. And I was asking him how his Sangha was doing, and he was telling me it's not as big as it was before COVID. But the people got along comfortably. And I communicated to him that the only thing I really enjoyed doing was satsang. Because we didn't have to talk about everyday events. That I really felt alienated when I got around people that talked about everyday things and activities. I know a couple who was part of Shankarananda's satsang in Los Angeles when I was a member of that same satsang. And I enjoyed being around them so much. But many years after that, when I began talking to them in Los Angeles, and then he moved to Phoenix, All they talked about was motorcycles and buying new houses and the best strategy for buying new houses. I found it more and more difficult to be around them. And then I stopped altogether because I wasn't interested in that kind of life or living. I was pretty satisfied living where I was, not having much to do with the external world. COVID helped that too, because I didn't want to go out anymore. And I found myself more and more comfortable doing nothing. Or just being in satsang, or with my friend Shankananda. Because I'm at peace. I know I forced the issue by gradually divorcing myself from the external world. Because of COVID, I learned to give myself haircuts, learned to order food from Fry's supermarket by just making an order online and then going and picking it up, or having Karima pick it up. I had less and less to do with the external world. I didn't go to movies. I didn't go to public malls. I didn't go to department stores. I did all my shopping online. And I grew happier and happier. The less I did, the better I felt. Just like Robert said, when I turned away from the world, I found enormous peace inside. I grew very comfortable to just going within and relaxing. Go within. Find yourself. Get out of your matrix. Whatever it is, the verbal universe you live within, realize it's illusory. Whatever words you say about the world are just abstractions and really don't touch what the world is really like, but only describe it in linguistic terms, using generalities like chair, car, space, time, which all lack the immediacy of the present. Vesselina can't stand being around her acquaintances at school because all they do is talk about medicine and their petty complaints. I can't stand being around normal people either, like my former spiritual friends who now talk about motorcycles and new houses. I just want to run away screaming when I get around ordinary people that keep dragging me down and getting into their world of the nitty gritty activities of everyday life. Instead, I like to plunge within and find the freedom from thought and from doing. By being tossed into my own inner peace, which is there all the time. I just had to learn how to get underneath the mind. And once you know how to get underneath the mind, it's very close to being within your grasp. Because the mind means nothing then. Knowledge means nothing. It's all just flapping of one's lips. All you really need to know is where's the bathroom, where's the kitchen, where's the bedroom. What's in the refrigerator? Where can I go for pickup? I like to go to Wong's Jr. near us. They have fantastic Chinese food and it's cheap. Wong's Jr. Who would have known? Cassie, Do you feel the peace within?
Off and on.
What happens when it's off? How does that come about?
Oh, I listen to my mind. And I start taking it, what it's saying, for true.
Yeah. Frank, what about you?
Yes, more and more in a place of inner quiet and peace. Sometimes in meditation, when it gets really quiet, the inner darkness starts to get illumined. And I'm starting to feel the presence of an inner light. Very brief, but it's there. Like Cassie, I can notice when the thoughts grab a hold of me and appreciate which ones are more seductive than others. And they're the ones that seem to want my attention more strongly. But looking at the belief systems that underlie those thoughts has been very helpful to me to clear them. For those of us who like to at least pretend we understand something, I just discovered a book called The Physics of God by a man named Edward Selby, S-E-L-B-I-E, that is, at least as far as I've come, the best description I've seen that brings an interface between science and spiritual understanding. It's really amazingly simple to understand for this mind that never grasped physics. So for anyone who was even remotely interested in such things, I do recommend it. It's very entertaining. I think it's even on YouTube. The author is reading it aloud. So that's it.
Miss Selena, what thoughts are dominating your thoughts today?
Yeah, about my school and the dynamics of the relationships I have with the people there, my classmates, I mean, things like that.
How long before you graduate?
Well, officially I'll graduate in December.
Then what?
Yeah.
Then what?
I'll give it up. I'll burn my diploma. I'm joking. I don't know, we'll see. I want to work, but I feel unfit for work. Like I get tired so easy from psychologically, from interacting with many people, everybody wanting something different.
Yeah. Bernadette, you're always smiling now, which is different from 6 months ago. Have you gone crazy?
Yeah, I think so.
It's good to go crazy. By that, I mean it's good to lose one's mind somewhere. Drop it off somewhere. Maybe let it visit once in a while, but don't let it control your life anymore. When you realize by objectifying the mind that it really has nothing to do with who you are. It's absolutely separate, like a radio station keeps talking, but you're not listening anymore, or you barely hear it in the background and you don't pay any attention to it. Because the mind is trivial, the thoughts it has is just the same repetitive bullshit thoughts that you think all the time. And when you give that up, what a sense of peace you have, that noise machine is no longer so prominent in your life, but that the open space of silence has expanded your inner world 100-fold so that it can contain almost anything. You live in the moment spontaneously, not trying to figure things out anymore, but just waiting to see what's going to come along. Whether it's a new job, new relationship, or the exponential unfolding of the silence within you as the mind is displaced by the inner peace within. And you can just relax and rest in your own inner peace and find happiness for the first time. Not the happiness that comes with situational satisfaction, getting something you want, but a happiness that's always with you, down deep. It comes when you're silent, and you're not thinking. And even after a while, giving up watching thoughts because it's no longer necessary as a practice to separate you from your mind. Your mind is just there as a more or less silent partner that you can use when you have something to think about, like deciding how to divide the check in a restaurant after 4 of you have had dinner there, and each one has had something different. You're trying to think of how much is 20% of $41.36, adding in 20% for a tip, or 15% if you thought it was left something to be desired, or wondering why you didn't just pick up on an outtake basis and save the tip. See, the mind does have its uses, saving money. Mark, what have you to say? I'll give you free rein. You don't have to talk about a specific topic. Teach us.
Well, if I may speak, I I've spoken about this before, but you've kind of highlighted it. So if indeed the body mind is not who we really are, if indeed the running commentary of thought is an automatic instinctual process generated by the brain, has nothing to do with us, but it's all close to us, it's in our awareness. So that's the primary difficulty for most people, is the thoughts seem to be addressing me. And the thoughts seem to be, the whole field of thought appears to be reality, appears to be the totality of self, where from these teachings, it's actually an obstruction of the self. It's actually the primary illusion, the primary obstruction.
Yes.
And that is the difficulty for most people, is like you say, going below the mind. Easy for some to do, but not for everyone. But it's almost like it's a spatial thing. It's like the awareness of the self goes out to the thought, identifies with the thought, and it seems to be the same as thought. But through going prior, realizing thought is not who you are, hopefully one's awareness can stop going out from where it is and just subside from where it originates. And by doing that, it becomes a portal. It seems to be a portal to a higher dimension, where the real self seems to come fully formed from a higher dimension, from within.
Or a lower dimension.
Or a lower, but a different dimension.
Yeah.
So it's like a spatial realignment of one's awareness from going out to the thought process and the body process to subsisting from where it originates, which easier said than done, but that's all I have to say. It's commenting on what you've already said, but from a slightly different perspective.
Nobody has a cat on camera today. I'm kind of bummed. Oh, there we are. Does anybody really watch cats? They have an ability to fall asleep in 5 seconds or less. Or dogs. They're a wonderful guru to feel your own natural life. Or your heart goes out to them. And you can feel, especially with a kitten, the joy the kitten is having being alive. It's a tremendous experience. I call the new guy Shakti because he's nothing but moving energy. And I'm not even sure of that name because names don't really seem to fit. But I got sick of calling him Hey You because he didn't respond to the Hey You. He's not responding to Shakti either. So he's not caught in my matrix. Bye, Frank. Anyway, anybody have anything to say before we leave each other? Does anybody want to leave an insult like Maxie? I've shot my wad for today.
Ed,
Yes.
it's Michael T. Do you edit the question part, or if we ask you a question, or do you include that in your recordings?
Sometimes I include it, sometimes I don't.
Okay. Well, I was kind of want to ask you a question that you can edit, if that's okay. Off topic, when you had the great energies that you dealt with Janet and Dia, and they were overwhelming in terms of the Shakti, and there were more than you can ground or put in your heart to dissolve. What's the best thing to do when you have the anxiety? Run or do something else that you don't have to think about it if the energy gets really overwhelming?
Say that again.
If
Slowly.
Okay, if you have to deal with the great Shakti energies that go through another human being, like you did with Janet.
And did you freeze? Okay, you're back. Can't hear you now, though.
My connection sucks today. If you have the great energies and you can't, if you need to ground it and it's too great to ground it, is it best to go out for a jog when you have anxiety over it or something?
Of course.
Because sometimes it gets so powerful, my grounding skills don't handle it. It's like too much voltage or too much horsepower for the car.
You know, one of the greatest things you could do is let it overwhelm you, completely blow you away, burn you out, rather than managing it. Let it take you where it wants to take you. Let it blow you away. Let it fry your brain, your heart. Let it fuck you over.
It's a big gamble, though. You could go into grief.
There's no gamble there. It's only an emotion. It's only a feeling. It's only an energy. It can't exceed your ability to tolerate it because its origin is in you. It's not something alien. It's your own. It's a friend. And it only feels like it's going to blow you apart. But in fact, it gives you so much power that when you learn that it's on your side and you can feel it, you can feel the power as your own power. And you become, in that moment, superhuman. So go for it. Okay. Who am I going to turn the meeting over to? Who wants to lead the meeting? Stick up your hand. Eric, are you willing? Okay. I'll see you all next Wednesday. Bye-bye.